Hey everybody, this is Jim and Jeremy with Experience AV. How's everybody doing today? Jim, how are you? How's the weather?
You're doing well, man. It's spring. Spring has sprung. We're getting there.
Spring has sprung. That's good to hear. Well, we're at a nice 78 degrees out here in Arizona, like we have been most of the winter time. So, we don't really know what that stuff means out here. But great to see you, man. Excited to,
You
to be
too.
here with Experience AV and sharing some stories with our friends today. So, to introduce our episode, Jim came up with the idea. He said, "Hey, let's talk about our favorite AV experiences." And I mean, when somebody says that to you, if you're in AV, it just stops you flat. 'Cause you're like, "My favorite AV experience." I mean, first of all, how do I finger one single experience out of all the AV experiences that we've had to say is my favorite? So I started arguing with Jim pretty quickly and was like, well, if we're going to do favorite AV experiences, we have to break it up. We have to talk a little bit about maybe the way we've experienced AV and then the way that we've also shared our experience in AV. So the way we thought we would come to the show today is with some stories of how AV and what experiences really stuck with us. What happened to us either, experiencing experiential technology, AV technology as a technological experience. And then we've had the benefit of, working our careers in the audiovisual industry. And so equally as cool as the technology is the industry that supports the technology. And we've been so blessed with incredible experiences on the
Yeah.
professional side of AV that there's no way to have a favorite AV experience show without talking about some of the experiences that we have had from an AV industry perspective. So, with that, I'm going to ask Jim to kick it off with his first favorite AV experience. And again, like I mentioned, we're going to break this up. And the first thing we're going to go after is, what's a great experience that you've had where AV kind of blew you away, or it was some sort of AV technology experience situation that really set you back and was memorable. You want to kick us off, Jim?
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, I am. You wouldn't know this from looking at my house. I'm kind of a pack rat. I just thrive in clutter. It's just how I'm built. But for my AV experience, I am just a true minimalist. I love when the technology just completely disappears. So something that blows me away is when manufacturers or scientists just take something that is super simple. It's something that we as humans are just it's how we're built. They boil it down to its simplicity, and it produces just an exceptional experience. And one of my favorite things to do is binaural inner ear recordings. So if you want to pull that up
Yep.
on
Let
the
me bring
slide.
it up right here.
So we spend tens of thousands of dollars with these systems that try to reproduce 3D spatial audio, so you can hear, jets flying over your head, and you hear people creeping up behind you. And there are multiple loudspeakers, and it gets crazy. 5.1, 7.2, Atmos, all these different solutions. But at the base of it, like we are we're monkeys, right? We have monkey brains with only two audio inputs, our left and our right ears. So what these binaural recordings do is they take a shape of an ear and they put a microphone in that fake ear, and that's how they record it. And the incredible thing about these recordings is you get all that spatial data from the recording itself with just a stereo recording. So it just has two channels of audio, left and right. The magic is where, when we're in real life, where we get all that top and bottom audio information from, is it reflects off all these little nooks and crannies in our ears, so we can tell a sound is behind us or in front of us or on top of us. And so by recording it in this manner, you can get all that spatial information just from headphones, which I absolutely love. And if you completely want to freak out, you can just Google binaural recording virtual barbershop, and it's just a stereo recording. of someone trimming your hair with a buzzer, and you feel the buzzer going up the back of your head, going over the top of your head, going over your sides, over your ears. It's freaky, but it's awesome. And this is where ASMR folks who just love that very intimate audio experience, they thrive on this stuff. It gives you tingles. And so for my favorite experience is just the idea that as long as you record something right, you just need two channels of audio to give you all of that spatial information. And then to take it a step further, like before YouTube, my father Mary would always tell me these stories about going to SynodCon and doing inner ear recordings and getting these time-aligned loudspeakers so you can get this information in a room. But they, of course, they're crazy at SynodCon, so they would take it a step further and actually put inner ear microphones in different people's ears, so that now I can listen to experiences and concerts with my ears, and I can record it and play it back for other people, or I can try on Jeremy's ears. And what was always interesting was, different people experience sound very, very differently, and the shape of their ears have such a dramatic difference or impact on how that spatial information is captured. And so if I'm listening with my ears, I might be able to tell that that buzzer is exactly 1 inch from my ear. But if I listen with Jeremy's ears, it might get a little fuzzier because they're a different shape. So I just I don't know, the simplicity of it, the magic of it, and to get all of that information from just stupid little ear-shaped microphones, it blows me away. I love it.
That's incredible. What a great story. It's interesting because I hadn't quite considered the fact that all these crazy multi-channel audio systems that we deploy, it all comes back down to two-channel stereo
That's it.
when it enters your ear, right? So it's pretty amazing that you can model the data. And when I say data, right, the information that's coming from the audio, greater, less positional data being able to
Yeah,
be produced by just two channels as opposed to physically positioning the audio in the space to achieve the same result, essentially, right?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
amazing. I
yeah.
will
I,
be
I I think it's
I'll be
fantastic.
checking out the haircut later today. I
Yeah,
haven't gotten a
it's
chance.
creepy.
We
It's
got to make sure
creepy.
we leave a link to that in the YouTube
Yeah,
comments for everybody. That's a
yeah.
great one. So
How
I
about
guess
you?
that leads to my story. So before you put the slide up, Jim, my story is it's a really good segue off of where Jim came from because it's audio related. And of course, again, as I mentioned earlier, trying to identify your favorite AV experience is a trying task. So I've got a couple of stories for most of these things. And when I kind of said, well, I'll just break it into audio and video. And for the audio side, I started thinking about some of the experiences that I've had and kind of went back to some concerts that I've been to over the years. And it was easy to like pick out what was my best concert experience, which was, a Queen with Paul Rogers and a Claire Brothers custom sound system that just sounded absolutely amazing. It was a moment I'll never forget because I've never experienced a live sound concert experience like that again.
Mm.
But it was a concert, and I was still just kind of trying to think about a moment that really dropped my jaw to the floor. And that brought me to the Meyer sound constellation system and my first experience of a Meyer sound constellation system, which was at Infocom of all places, which is a great place to experience crazy technology for the first time or the 10th time if you're in love with it that much, which in this case, it was my first time even learning about what the constellation system is. And for those who don't know, Meyer is an incredible sound company out of the Bay Area in California, very revolutionary. And the constellation system is an electroacoustic processing system that allows you to essentially take complete control over an acoustic environment. So before we get into that, how I first experienced Meyer Sound Constellation was at Infocom. And here's how the demo went. They brought about 100 of us into a room, and it was a large room that was done up with truss and really nice black velour curtains. So it was lit well. It was like a little bit of a concert stage setup. And you walk in and you sit down, and everybody sits down, and they're kind of waiting for the demo to start. And all of a sudden, a light comes on, and a beautiful woman with a saxophone starts playing, and it's amazing. Just this beautiful jazz piece, and she's walking around the room playing, and it sounds great. And you're just waiting for everything to start. Well, after about 2 or 3 minutes of that, she goes back off into the corner, and somebody comes on a microphone. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Meyer Constellation demo. You know, Talks a little bit about electroacoustics, the idea of being able to control acoustics, and said, now we're ready to demo the Constellation system. The thing you don't realize is that you've actually been experiencing it since you came into the room. And we're all kind of like, what do you mean? And he asks the woman to start playing the saxophone again, and she starts playing the saxophone again. And again, it's just this beautiful, rich sound that just sounds fantastic. And he looks over at a gentleman at the rack and says, can you go ahead and turn the system off? And as soon as he turns the system off, wherever you're sitting in the room, all of a sudden the sound gets about this big. It goes from this nice, big, fill sound that just sounds really nice within the space, but not too much. Like, you don't even really realize that there's a sound system on. To your point, Jim, when you don't see it is like when it's that incredible experience. But when they turn the system off, all of a sudden, way over on the other side of the room is this saxophone player, and the sound coming out of the saxophone is very small. Well, it's because you quickly realize that there's no microphone on the saxophone. They turn the system back on, and all of a sudden, it's like the saxophone is standing right next to you, playing right next to you, anywhere you are in the world. Or anywhere you are in the room. So that requires a little bit of context. How does this constellation system work, right? So they take a room, an environment, and they pepper it with speakers and microphones in a grid, literally a full grid, ceiling, sidewalls, front and back, depending on the space that they're targeting, a full grid of speakers and microphones. And those microphones pick up the audio. This is thanks for sharing the picture, Jim. This room, what you see on the screen, for those of you who can't see the screen and are just listening, it's actually just a training room, and it's peppered with microphones in a grid, very defined engineered grid pattern, and it's peppered with speakers in a defined grid pattern. And the beauty of it is, you'll also notice in the picture that there are no microphones on the desks. No requirement for any microphone to be placed on a source within the environment. That was what the most incredible thing was with the saxophone player during the demo, is this sax player is walking through the space with no microphone, and it sounds amazing, as if you're standing right next to this person, no matter where you are in the room. And it's because the microphones that are nearby, picking up the audio from the or from the saxophone, are then redistributing that in the other speakers within the space, while minimizing it out of the speakers that are near the saxophone. So if you're right next to her, you're hearing the saxophone. If you're all across the room, you're hearing it from the speakers. But the processing behind the Constellation system does such an incredible job of spatially positioning it so it feels like you're right next to where the sound source is. It was astounding. And taking that just a little bit further, this room's a great picture. Imagine being able to stand in the front of this room full of people and not have to have a microphone on your lapel or in your hand, and the room itself picks up your energy, works with all the rest of the energy happening in the room, controlling the acoustics, and reproduces it in a way that provides an incredible experience for the users without having to have a microphone. It honestly, it just blew me away when I saw it the first time.
It's crazy. I love, yeah. When we were talking about this, I in my head, it just popped in. It's the perfect mix minus system, right? Because it's not just about amplifying that sound into the room. You have to apply proper delays so that, if you're listening in the back of the room, you can still kind of tell the speaker or the saxophonist is up front. So you need to kind of blend that source audio with the amplified audio and make sure it arrives at the ears at the right time. That's incredible.
You're totally
What
right.
what 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 a system.
Well, and you mentioned mix minus, right? Think about all the mix minus systems we've set up, but it's kind of like you kind of set them with like known sources positioned within the
Oh yeah,
space.
yeah.
Imagine the processing required to move with a movable source and still be able to
Nope.
dynamically
It's, it's
that
ridiculous.
we got a Gain Foster just showed up on our live feed, and I have to give a shout out to Gain, because if there's a guy that probably understands all the processing behind the constellation system, it's Gain. So what an incredible
Yeah,
audio company Meyer is.
yeah. It's magic. It's magic.
Magic. And you can't see it, so to your point,
That's
very
right.
subjective.
Yeah. Awesome. So I mean, let's shift gears now. What if we covered audio? I think the audio experiences are definitely magical. Video experiences can be just as magical, right? Have you ever been
Absolutely.
to Disney World?
I have. Over
One
in
of my
Florida.
well, that's yeah. I'm an East Coast guy,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I think they all have it though. Disney likes to kind of make sure everyone has the same experience anywhere. But they have this ride called Soaring, but said cool, Soarin'. And I'll step you through the entire process. So you're probably waiting online for like 20 minutes or so, and then you get into these what look like just park benches that are on the ground, and everyone kind of funnels in. But then once you strap in, and there is a bar, so you kind of know you're going to be moving a little bit. But once you strap in, all those park benches go vertical. So now you're not in a bench, but you're in a swing, and you might be 20 feet off the ground, 40 feet off the ground if you're in that first row, or 6 feet off the ground. But so everyone who was here now has just a perfect line of sight for this massive projection screen. It's I don't know, however, let's call it 150 feet or something like that. It's just massive, so you cannot see the edges, and you start to get your bearings, because you're up in the air, you've got a bar down in front of you, and you're kind of floating. But because the screen is so big and the audio is so good, everyone has their own essentially personal speaker right there. So the audio is there, the video is there. You lose yourself in it, and then the ride starts. And next thing you know, you are literally soaring over the Great Wall of China or the pyramids. I don't know, but you completely lose yourself in this massive visual experience, and it blows me away. Of course, they take it up a notch, so the audio is good. When you're flying through, they blow a little air on you. When you go over orange groves, they spritz a little orange, smell chemical stuff, which I'm sure is great for you. But it is such a magical visual experience, and just that idea of losing yourself in the imagery, and just really appreciating how, I mean, if you want to talk about photos, and everyone has those three-dimensional photos that you could, and 360 video and all that stuff, but if you want to lose people in the imagery, like for me, this just took the cake. It was really just so well done.
That is incredible. I was gonna comment after your story. I've never been very personally. I've never been super impressed by some of the like amusement rides. It's cool. They're doing their best. The 3D
Yeah,
stuff, the 4D stuff. It's really neat, but never have I found myself so immersed, so lost in the experience that you completely forget and forget that it's a technological experience. So that sounds incredible. And just seeing the
yeah.
pictures of how it was kind of built and engineered to create that perfect viewing experience for each person, I can very much appreciate that.
and it comes down to simplicity for me again, because how easy it's just a big old honking screen, right? But you're giving everyone just a perfect seat. You're giving everyone a front row seat that's not too close. It's just it's simple, it's well done, it's really good.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Is this still, do you know, is this still active at Disney World?
It is, yeah. And everyone can go on it, so it's a very popular ride. But it's just such a simple thing, but it's so beautiful that yeah, I don't think they're getting rid of it anytime soon.
Nice one, man. Nice one.
Yeah, yeah. How
All
about
right.
yourself?
Well, moving into the pixel side of the AV conversation, lots of big screens, lots of video walls along the way, kind of digging through the legacy of experiences. And where I landed with this one was a project that we were fortunate enough to do for a incredible neurological surgical facility
Mm-hmm.
here in Arizona. And the visual side of it, just a quick description on the project. There was a couple of rooms involved. One is a teletheater, the other is a 3D auditorium. And the 3D auditorium was what provided this visual experience that was breathtaking for me. And the experience was this. The experience is this is a world renowned brain surgery facility, and they have an incredible 3D microscope that they are able to poke into a patient's brain that allows them to visualize the brain in ways not previously possible by the human eye. What's equally cool about the 3D microscope is it has a dual 4K SDI output. For all UAV geeks, that means we can take that 3D image and redistribute it and do all kinds of fun things. And so what they asked for was distributing this image down to about a 300-seat auditorium where we could watch live brain surgeries taking place with all the appropriate, compliance things in place. Let's be sure to,
Right,
to mention
right.
that across the board. But the first time I sat in that auditorium and watched a surgeon take this 3D microscope and place it in someone's head and be able to visualize the brain and the lesion and the work that they were trying to do on a massive screen with several other people, because it's a teaching hospital, most of them are, my breath was taken away. Because
Yeah,
again, we see all these incredible visual experiences from an entertainment perspective, but when you have this incredible visual experience and recognize how much of a tool this provides the surgeon and the doctors to visualize our brains in a way that wasn't previously available, and then to be able to take that to a wider audience so that we can all see that same visual experience, was just a bit mind blowing for me when I sat in the room and witnessed my first live surgery.
crazy. How do people who are seated around the tables, how do they experience 3D? Like, is it glasses? Is it a headset? Is it like what?
Well, so it's
How'd they
it's
do
not
it?
it's not fair to ask that question, only because the picture that's on the screen is not of the 3D theater. This is of the teletheater. This is the room right next door. Didn't have a good picture of the 3D theater, but
Okay,
ultimately it is an active glasses situation
active
to
glasses.
in the theater. So you place glasses on and you're able
Mm,
to recreate that left and right imagery, and it's an incredible experience, a surprisingly incredible experience. The goal is
awesome.
eventually to bring the 3D imagery into the room that you're seeing here on the screen as well,
Hmm.
but quite frankly, the technology at the time when this room was installed did not support the type of 3D work we were trying to accomplish in a flat panel display situation that fit the
Right,
space and was front
right.
serviceable. But I digress.
Hmm. That's so cool, though.
Yeah, incredible, incredible, incredible client, incredible use of technology, and again, breathtaking to see somebody's brain live on display in 3D on
Yeah,
a.
and I've heard a lot of people poo-poo like the idea of 3D or even VR, but biology and medical and schools, to see the three-dimensionality of things adds such a depth to what you're trying to convey. Like that is where it adds so much to their experience.
Well, you just hit on it for me too. I actually am not the biggest fan of 3D movies. I'm not a
Yeah.
huge fan of going and seeing movies in 3D at the theater. I preferred the standard. Like, it is kind of cool. There was a pizzazz moment when it first came out, but then I felt like there was some, quite frankly, fidelity loss with the 3D on some of the faster moving movies, and it just wasn't my thing. To your
Yeah.
point, in healthcare, especially healthcare education, it's a whole new dimension of data that you've got that you didn't previously have.
Yeah. And I feel like the movie folks, it's like they just try to do 3D tricks because they're spending all this money on 3D. All right, so I've got to have something flown out of the screen so that people, oh my God, go like this. But if you're just using it as another tool and not like a gimmick, I think it takes on just a whole, like you said, a whole new layer of information.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than watching a movie on your TV at home and realizing that it was a made for 3D movie, that without
Yep.
3D, so much of it is lost.
Exactly. Exactly. So
So,
cool.
okay, is this the midpoint? Is this where we move the experiential conversation from one of the
Yes.
technology experience to one of more of a industry professional experience?
Indeed, it is, my friend. Look, I even have a shifting gears slide.
Wow.
I spent a
Wow.
lot of time on this.
The
Yes.
animation is so smooth and subtle, I can't even tell that it's
Yes.
going.
If you look, you have to look really hard, but it's there. Yep. No, a little bit harder. Wow.
Uh,
All right, that's
all right.
creepy.
Okay. All right.
Creeping me out.
That's
All
all
right.
right. Just checking. Just checking. All right.
Yeah, so we talked about our favorite AV experiences, but now we're going to talk about our favorite experiences in AV. And for me, it has to be. I mean, it, I'm not even trying to be self-serving, but this was one of probably the pinnacle of my career. And in 2017, I was humbled and honored to receive the Educator of the Year. And I can honestly say, technically, that I was the last person ever to receive Infocom's Educator of the Year. Because in 2018 they became a VIXA, and so I'm going to take that. I was the last. It's very fancy. Anyway, I was humbled, and it was an incredible honor. I am so thankful to the organization, and it was life changing. Like it's just, it feels so good to be recognized by that. But the award was wonderful. The ceremony was incredible. But what my favorite part of that whole experience was during the education breakfast. We were teaching CTSD, and they put my mug up on the screen, and it was just the educators and the people who were there for the IPD weekend before Infocom, taking the 3-day classes. And as they put my picture up, I hear people starting to laugh, and I'm like, what? That's not very nice at all. I thought I was doing good. They gave me this beautiful award, and I hear people laugh. And then I see Chuck Espinoza and Jeremy Caldera come over. Of course, they had to pick like the worst picture I had on Facebook that I think one of my coworkers helped them out with. But they had put my face on their T-shirt, and that is probably better than getting the actual award, because the award is wonderful. It's an industry recognition. It's incredible. But to have two friends in the industry who go out of their way, spend their own money to make T-shirts of you, to like it took my breath away. And I mean, I love those guys. I love those guys for doing this, but I love them before any of this happened, of course. But that's the magic to me of the AV industry. Like, we are such a unique and close knit industry. That's something that I'm going to take with me forever, and that's probably my favorite part in that industry. And don't get me wrong, we've gone to Japan, we've gone to Italy. I've been in these beautiful boardrooms. I get to see incredible views. I get to work with incredible people. But just having those people say, "Dude, you did good," and make you smile, and it just, that was absolutely my favorite part, my favorite moment in the AV industry.
I was sitting nearby while that picture was being taken, so I remember it well, and it was an incredible experience. You know, congratulations again, Jim, on that award. In my opinion, there's not very many people that I know in the industry who deserve it more, and who have given more to the industry. So, man, well, okay. So you started off the education conversation, and for everybody's benefit, we didn't necessarily pregame on this. We kind of said we'll figure out our list of experiences, and we would come together. Well, for those of you who don't know, one of the absolute binding ties for me and Jim is education, passion for education,
Absolutely.
passion for learning, passion for AV. A little bit of a story going backwards before we switch sides here. Met Jim through doing work with AQAV and some mutual clients that we had. And Jim had been teaching for Avixa quite some time at that point, CTSD specifically. And I remember starting to teach for AQAV a little bit here and there, and starting to do some of the certifications, finding ways to give back, serving on some committees. But I'd always had a real desire and passion to be able to teach and give back to the industry in a greater capacity. And so Jim, you know, we became fast friends just through doing work together. But I remember timidly asking Jim, "Hey, do you happen to know how somebody might get involved with, you know, being able to help teach at Avixa?" And I think his comment was like, "Well, yeah, you want to come teach CTSD with me?" And I will admit at that moment I was like, "CTSD? Damn, like got to go for the hard stuff. Like, can't we maybe start at CTS or CTSI?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, that'd be awesome." One thing led to another, and within a couple of weeks, I was invited to go co-teach with Jim. And when I showed up at Infocom, we're not ready for the slide yet, so keep it on this
Nope.
slide. This is still appropriate. So I showed up that first year scared and excited and nervous, and all the good feelings that come along with wanting to do a good job, and given an opportunity to give back to an industry that had given so much to me. I mean, there are so many people, two of them are on the screen with you right now, that have impacted me from an education perspective, from a growth perspective, from a learning perspective, from a best practices perspective, from a constantly pushing the industry forward and being
Yeah.
willing to rethink things, right? Like that's the core of lifelong learning and education, and passion for learning and passion for teaching is igniting those sparks and then keeping those sparks lit, because it's an ever fast, ever changing industry. And if you don't find a cadence of learning, finding a cadence of education that allows you to keep up, you'll get left behind. But I digress a bit. Going back to that first year of teaching CTSD, and this for me was a moment. So wrapped up in education. But that first year, one of the things that Avixa does is they do an instructor dinner. And so all the instructors, because there are staff instructors like Chuck, Marcus previously, and then there's a bunch of volunteers that give of their time freely to come help out at Infocom and provide 3-day instruction courses. And they always do an instructor dinner on the second night usually. And all the instructors and volunteer instructors come together after class, and they get a bite to eat and have a drink together. And that first year, when I sat down at the table, wondering if I even belonged at this table, because that's generally how you feel when you sit at tables the first time like that. And I look down and I see faces from the industry that I have learned from for years. And I look down the other way and I see faces of instructors that guided me through CTSI and guided me through CTSD and were there to help make sure that I was successful. And yet now I was sitting at a table as peers with them as opposed to in an instructor student capacity. And that was just a mind blowing moment for me. It was
Yeah.
a moment of inspiration to realize how incredible this group of people is, and even more so how incredible it is that these people give so much of themselves freely to give back to the industry that they love so dearly. And it was all over for me at that point. I was all in on anything I could do. Avixa pretty much knows that if they reach out to Jim or Jeremy, we're going to be all in on helping anything that pushes the initiative forward from an education perspective. We work with AQAV, we teach AQAV classes, we do our own boot camps. We're all about education, and the fact that we were able to get involved with our key industry organizations and give back in a way that just ever so slightly maybe puts a dent in what we've gotten from all the
Right.
others in the industry is, I mean, that's the lifelong mission, right? Is let's spend our lives trying to repay a debt that cannot be repaid through service in education. And I know I'm going long here, but the relationships that came out of the education process, the relationship. So fast forward, Jim, 2017 Educator of the Year. 2019, I show up at Infocom, having taught a few years now, and was blessed with the same award. So if you'd move to the slide, Jim, and walking into the food hall that morning to start class and to have this group of people there standing with again your picture, because again this Chuck Espinosa and Jeremy really started this tradition originally, and it took like wildfire, and we've gotten shirts for every Educator of the Year since
Absolutely.
then. And we missed last year, so I'm not sure how we're going to craft together multiple shirts this year, but we'll figure it out. Highlight of my whole career right here. 100%. There's nothing better than being recognized by your peers, by people that you think are better than you at what they do, and being recognized by them as an equal and as a participant in, the industry that we're all a greater part of. I didn't even know what to say. You pretty much just stand there and smile stupidly
Yeah.
like I am in that picture, because it's quite a humbling, overwhelming experience. This is also the first time I ever met Chrissy. It's a really interesting experience meeting somebody for the first time with their face on a shirt, or my face on their shirt. It was very, very interesting.
It's so cool.
And the last thing I'll say here is Chuck and the level 3 team actually took a step further. And so when the actual award ceremony happened center stage at Infocom, I had like most of my team, 50 people, show up. And somebody had also made more shirts, different, not best picture, but still a great
by,
picture, great
by
experience.
design. By design.
By design, right? But again, to have your company show up like that and support the fact that you are awarded with, something that's really important to us because it fits right into our passion. Hands down, best week, and I even got sick that week, but hands down, best week of industry exceptionalism, and feeling like I couldn't be more thankful and grateful to be a part of it.
Yeah. And that's something else that blows me away about the industry is the willingness to share this information, right? You said it, that when you teach, you take away much more than you give. And I just love that fact that there are competitors, there are whatever, but we get together at these shows, at these engagements, and freely share information, and it's just to make the industry better. It's to make each other better, and we lift each other up. Like there was, it touched me when I saw my face on these silly t-shirts, but it immediately sparked in me, I think not 7 minutes later, in my heart I was like, I want to do this to every other educator of the year because it feels so good. I want to give them this experience, this celebration of education, this recognition in the industry. I want people to have this just elation that I have. I want to do that to every other educator of the year. It's a very special industry.
It truly is. And I just want to say to everybody who might be listening, if you've ever been in a AV class and been inspired, taken something away that made you better at your job, gave you a new perspective, something that was a gain for you, think about how that made you feel. Well, as instructors, that's what we drive for every single time. And it comes from having experienced that ourselves. I sat in a class doing my CTSD boot camp. That's right. I didn't plan that or anything. And I remember getting inspired so many times during that boot camp, learning things for the first time, going, wow, oh, this is going to make me so much better at this, or I'm going to be a better able to serve on this side of things, or something along those lines. And it's those moments of inspiration that you see. So I implore any of you out there, if you want to give back to this industry, there are ways to give back to this industry, lots and lots of ways. And the networking and the camaraderie and the experience you will receive from seeking to give back to the industry, at least if you're talking to me and Jim, will be one of the most rewarding experiences you get out of this industry. I can't encourage anyone enough to get involved. If it's not
Absolutely.
teaching, get involved with a committee, get involved with something that helps navigate, steer, and provide direction to this exciting, ever-changing industry.
Yeah. My dude, I can't think of a better way to end the show on that note.
Are we there?
I think we are there. Yeah, I think we are there. I'm just blanking out, but yeah, no, but I think we have to end it there. That you can't top that. You can't follow that.
All right. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, we could honestly probably do 3 more shows
I
talking about
know. I
favorite
know.
AV experiences, but and I'm not
We could
surprised
even
that.
talk about not so favorite experiences as well.
Ooh,
That could be interesting.
we're gonna have to make sure we blank out all the
Yeah,
names
yeah.
and
We'll have to get
faces.
that cleared with legal and all that stuff. But it still could be fun.
It'd be fun.
It still could be fun.
It'll be a 3-minute episode because they'll pull out all of the stuff that we were
Yes,
gonna say, but
exactly.
it could be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, Jim, thanks for the time. I'm not surprised. I can't say that I'm surprised that when we landed on education, this is where you and I really get spun up together in general. So look forward to finding more opportunities to have incredible AV experiences with you and to share more stories with the audience.
absolutely, man. It's fantastic.
Well, with that, thanks everybody. Appreciate you listening in, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks for coming along for the ride.
Take care.